Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Get Jashed. So today I have with me Harley Fox. Harley is the owner of Healthy Fox Exercise Physiology. He's a clinical exercise physiologist who works with particular expertise supporting defense members and veterans. And Harley's work helps his clients manage chronic pain and symptoms of PTSD and depression, among many other things, and improve their general quality of life. So I thought it was a great idea to get Harley along to just have a chat about that, because there's a lot of self-leadership in how we approach our physical health and well-being. And I know that Harley does a lot of great work through the Soldier Recovery Center as well, which is how we met. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So this is sort of such a broad question to start, because we're going in at the open end of the funnel. But what led you to caring so much about physical well-being? What was there any aha moment or particular moment, or was it just something you were always interested in?
I guess it's something I've always been pretty interested in. I was quite athletic during my youth, playing basketball, and it was always sort of my go-to. Daily activity was just go to the courts and catch up with people and play, and always felt better when I was exercising versus not exercising. Joined the military at a young age in my early 20s, and that sort of reinforced that, I guess. It was always very much a social thing, hanging out with the boys, and even in the Navy, when you'd take beers down to the basketball court rather than water, it was
That seems healthy. I love that.
But yeah, it was always something that I was sort of drawn to. And when I got out of the Navy, I really wanted to pursue a career that I was really interested in and that I could enjoy. And so my two options were diving, working on boats, or fitness. I actually chose diving first, became a dive master. Yeah, worked on some boats and stuff for a while, worked on liverboards up on the Great Barrier Reef. And then went to uni and in the hopes of becoming a marine biologist, just to pursue that sort of casual living on boats life. But after 6 months of microbiology and boredom, I pulled the pin on that and thought, what else can I do that I'm interested in and I enjoy? And that's when I chose exercise science.
Yeah, that makes sense in a way. Both are very active sort of, or marine biology can be potentially very active when you're out on the water and in the oceans and everything. But I imagine it's probably hard to sort of stay in and focus if it's not moving you enough in the moment as well.
Yeah, I think it was more the drive for that. Wearing casual clothes to work, not being in a suit, in a tie, suffocating, working behind a desk in an office, all that sort of stuff.
And also just the complete opposite of military as well, where you get to just wear boardies and
yeah, it's freedom. Yeah.
That's fair. That's super fair. I know that one thing a lot of people struggle with when it comes to physical health in general, whether it is physical fitness or just physical health, is how I use this word a lot, and we've spoken a little bit about it now, but how they lead themselves, off the couch and into actually the routine, or the even if it's not a routine, the program of new things that support them. Did you find that always sort of easy? Was your background in military, did that help there, or what was your process
to get myself off the couch and moving?
Yeah, just to sort of have that motivation. Was it inherently there?
No, it's definitely not inherently there.
Tell me more.
Motivation it's a fickle beast. I think it's more about discipline than motivation. Motivation comes and goes, and more often than not, it's not there. So it's more about being disciplined and I guess the military helps instill that as well. Like it's what you have to do, not what you have to find the motivation to do. But yeah, there's um, more often than not, generally, unless I've had a few fights in Muay Thai and stuff. If I'm going to the gym to do Thai boxing or jiu-jitsu, I find it's pretty easy to get off the couch and leave the house. But if it's something like running where it's just a grind, I'll stare at my shoes for a good half an hour and try and think of 1,000 excuses. But
yeah, same.
Yeah, so then I think it comes down to discipline, like knowing that I have to do it and get up and do it for all the health benefits. But also, I find setting goals is the biggest motivator to make it happen. I know for myself that running or any sort of cardio is good for my health. I have familial hyper cholesterol, so I know if I don't exercise, I've actually had the blood work done and seen that if I don't do cardio exercise, my cholesterol skyrockets. So it's
wow. Okay.
kind of necessary for my health, but I'll still pay it off if I don't have some sort of goal to work towards.
Yeah. It's almost like the goal, like I find this with myself as well, like the goal helps me show up even when I don't have the motivation to, because then by showing up, the motivation comes. But like, if we were talking about having running goals before, but if there's a running goal, because I'm not going to show up to run otherwise, but if there's a running goal, I'm like, okay, cool. I'll show up even if I don't feel like it, because I actually want to meet the goal, because I'm competitive with myself like that. And then once I'm there, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm really motivated. Like in the moment, I'm like, yeah, I'm motivated to keep going and finish out like, this particular run, this particular thing. So I think like you've probably touched on something really helpful there, which we hear in a lot of places, but it's not always simplified like that, where it's just like, if you just let yourself show up in a moment, like then you might feel differently about your motivation for doing it.
Yeah, for sure. There's like they say, no such thing as a bad workout, and you definitely once you're there, you feel amazing. And once you get these endorphins and things pumping through, and you never regret doing it. But it's just that actual initial contact of moving into the activity.
Yeah,
It's the hard part.
it is, and it can be. Do you find a lot of resistance, or like, what do you find in the clients you work with, whether they're military or corporate or otherwise? Because I know you sort of have a variety there. What do you find helps most for them, or is it reminding them of things, or just like being accountable, or?
Yeah, I think you nailed it with the last one. Accountability is probably the biggest one. I think in this day and age, so you have trainers and exercise physiologists and all sorts of people to hold you accountable, and that's why the industry is so gigantic, and trainers and EPs make so much money. But on just off to the side of that, you've got social media, and people use that as a tool. Like, oh, check out my run, check out my stats, and I'm doing this goal, and then all the comment feed, you go girl or whatever, sort of drives you. And if you make an announcement, say I'm doing, Bridge to Brisbane in August, and all of your friends get behind you, then you feel accountable to them to actually do it and to actually train. And so you can be, posting yourself with the finisher's medal and getting all those accolades again. So I think accountability, finding some way to have accountability to someone, or some sort of external source rather than ourselves. Having internal accountability is probably the ideal scenario, but we don't always have it. And like, it's hard. Exercising is hard. If it was easy, everyone would do it. Like, it's easy to be lazy. It's easy to sit on the couch and not do something. So we need to find those little motivational drivers like accountability to get us over the line, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Like because as human beings, we're so wired to sort of take the path of least resistance, right? Like, you know, our brains are like, yeah, we need to stay in this safe zone, in what I know, because what I know is going to keep us safe. And that's the brain's only job, is to go, I know what's safe, so we're just going to keep doing that. We're going to stay in that same pattern. But when that sort of starts to loop in a way that's unuseful for us, like we definitely get stuck in, you know, that's how stress responses happen too. Like we get stuck in stress responses or nervous system activations, because our brain's like, well, like that was a danger before, or no, this is safe and this is all we need. And anything that feels different can feel amplified sometimes, depending on where our stress levels or our nervous states and all of those things are at in any given moment. How do you, whether it's about yourself or like with clients, how do you sort of approach it when you recognize that?
Those feedback loops where you get stuck in a rut for
Yeah.
I guess those feedback loops come in all shapes and sizes, like you're saying with the stress and anxiety and stuff, and you get stuck in those sort of mental cycles. Same with pain cycles, you know, you're in pain and then you do less, and then doing less causes more pain and you're stuck in that loop.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that feeds into it, obviously, as well, like depression and stress and anxiety, and that all feeds the beast. If you get stuck in that loop with the physical activity and not doing stuff and not being motivated, it's just my number one thing is just find a goal. Find someone to make you accountable. Go engage with the trainer, engage with the class, engage with a group. Go down, if you don't want to spend money on it, just go down to the bloody park run on the weekend and start engaging with that. Engage with CrossFit, martial arts, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai. That group, you know, we are social animals, and having that group dynamic and feeling that belonging, and then becomes easy. Like I was saying, if I'm going to a Muay Thai class or a jiu-jitsu class, I'll be skipping out the door because I love it. I love that. I love that feeling of connection.
Yeah.
You know, the physical touch and everything, even, you know.
Yeah, of course.
There's not many things closer than jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I mean, like you guys are basically just having a floor cuddle for like however long, right? Like
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Aggressive cuddling. Yeah.
Aggressive cuddling, exactly.
But yeah, and then, you know, just the sort of the bonds you form from that, and makes it easy to exercise, makes it easy to want to get out there. And that comes in all shapes and sizes. Like, you know, like to cuddle people, you can go do other stuff, dance, you know, whatever it might be. They all give you that benefit of being accountable to the group and giving yourself a high level of motivation. So,
yeah,
finding your thing. Everything is different for everybody, but everyone's got something that'll get them out the door.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because I've been doing more of a deep dive into mirror neurons like lately, because they've always fascinated me, and that just makes me think of how, you know, like when we are going out in connection, and like you said, like humans are social animals, like, you know, we're sort of always looking for some kind of connection regardless of your kind of personality type. But exercise is a really useful way to strengthen those mirror neurons, and how we bond and how we learn and how we imitate others, because it's such a like, I want to say hands-on, there's a different word that my brain is escaping me, but, you know, it's such a tactile experience. Any, like most kinds of exercises, you know, like you said, martial arts of all the different types are very tactile. But even being in groups for running, or being in like groups doing testing, you know, like where they're like, oh, you line them up and go, okay, we're doing the watt bike today and you're testing on that, and like there's still an element of neurons being fired in us that makes us feel a sense of connection and bonding. So it's kind of like,
oh yeah, for sure,
covert bonding in that way. You know, it's like, oh, this sucks, but also, oh, okay, yeah, this feels satisfying in a way I can't explain. And Why?
Yeah. That whole misery loves company is
Mm.
very true. And that if it's you're embracing the suck and you look over and you see somebody dying next to you and you, oh bro, this sucks. Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. You get that bond with each other. Um,
Mm.
breaks down a lot of maybe barriers you would have if you, especially if you have trouble connecting with people. I always find it hilarious. I'll take somebody to a gym. It's their first time and they're super nervous and they've never been there before and they're very, very timid and maybe soft spoken. And and if I told them like at the start of the session, I want you to lay down on the floor and writhe around like you're in pain, they would be mortified. But then you give them a 30-minute session and they are writhing around on the
Yeah.
floor.
Yeah.
Ah, like it's hilarious how it just breaks down those sort of barriers of what you think might be embarrassing or shame, and when you do that in a group environment, it's very bonding.
Mm. Yeah. I
What is this?
find,
What's this mirror neurons? What is that?
oh God. How do I explain? So, because it's recording too, so I want to make sure I get it right. So mirror neurons are basically like they tested a lot in monkeys to start with, and they found that humans have a similar. I'm going to try and get the wording as right as I can for the sake of posterity, but humans have a similar like neuron basically, where it's the mirror neurons where we learn by imitating. So the way I would explain that, let me put it that way, the way I would explain it is, if you have children, like, anyone has been around young children before they're able to speak properly, like children learn by what we model more so than what we say, like that's a secondary sort of thing, if it ever is a thing, depending on development and anything that might be in the way. But, we all learn by modeling. Like the game Simon Says is a great example, right? Because, it's always like Simon says, put your hands on your head. Simon says, put your hands on your shoulders, put your finger on your nose. And the person leading will do it. And we naturally follow the actions of someone quicker and more instinctively than by what they say. And this is just in the case of mirror neurons. So mirror neurons are the ones that sort of fire. Again, this is definitely not the best way to explain it for anyone listening as well, but mirror neurons are the ones that fire, and I believe we can sort of build how well they fire by practicing it, but they naturally fire the more we are around people. And we learn by there's a lot about grasping neurons as well, in a similar way, where it's like, oh yeah, like we learn to grasp the pencil or take a hold of something, and so there's like a reflection basically that goes back and forth. And I think it speaks to also emotional experiences or emotional awareness as well. And that's where it goes into my work, where it's like, well, when we're sort of switching that off, we're cutting off a really important part of ourselves to connect with others, or to feel connected with others in society or in our own tribes or in our own people. It's a lot of what I speak to SRC people about, because it's it's like, well, how do we sort of have this emotional awareness? So
Would
mirror
that be
neurons.
like a lot of that mimicking stuff, like
Mm,
people in groups start to look like and act like each other? I've
yeah.
actually been noticing it a lot um, lately. Tell me if it's the same thing, but if you're in a group, like four people are in a circle chatting, one person will cross their arms, and the
Yeah.
next thing you know, everybody's
Yeah.
crossing their arms.
Yeah, because
Or
that's like the body language element of like people trying to connect, because if we have similarities, like I could lean back and we're sort of doing the same thing right now, that sort of creates an unconscious rapport with the people around us, because it's like, oh, there's something same about us. So we like, again, going back to human beings being such a tribal kind of species, right? Like, oh, we're safe because if we're kicked out of the tribe for being different, the lizard part of the brain or the caveman part of the brain is like, oh, whoops, like if I'm kicked out of the tribe, I might actually die. But the body language sort of helps us to feel safe within the group that we're in. And it's so unconscious most of the time because like we're either trying to build rapport, like you can do it on purpose if you're aware of it in the moment, but that's a whole other
I've
topic.
noticed a lot of times, like sort of sitting in a position that I'm not used to sitting in, and I'll look around and I'll see somebody's doing it next to me. I'm like, oh, I'm doing it because they're doing it.
Yeah. And you notice it the more like you have just a natural bond with each other as well. Like we've been watching a lot of improv comedy on YouTube lately, and it's really fun for me. And there's this pair of people who do improv musicals, and it's really like it's amazing, and they're my kind of heroes because that I like theater things as well, like theater sports. And we're wondering like why are they so good? Like the other people that are coming on and joining this, like they're pretty good, but like why are they so good together? And we discovered that they've been doing it for years together. So it's like anything that you're doing, like when you're working with people for long enough, it's not like it's that bond, like it's the bond we know that happens when you do work like closely, especially in creative processes, or like you said, in like similarly challenging, like I don't want to say trauma bonding because exercise isn't necessarily trauma, but like similarly challenging similarly challenging experiences together. But if you're doing that enough, there's enough of that bonding, and that can also come in with like neurotransmitters as well, right? Like there's enough of that bonding happening across neurons, and like probably oxytocin plays a role, like probably especially in martial arts and jiu-jitsu and things, because it's like all cuddly. But like you watch how well they work together. This is really interesting this is coming up, because I'm realizing how much it's come up for me as well. Like, you watch how well they work together, because you just start to learn, and from that they actually do better. And I wonder if there's a lesson in that, with how we approach, like to bring it back to that, like, because how you do one thing is how you do everything, how we approach physical health, and how we allow ourselves to sort of, even if it's a solo activity, how we allow ourselves to still be in community. Because I imagine everything I can think of is actually, I've seen it as a community activity. But you think of like maybe ultra marathon runners, like there's a lot of that they're doing on their own in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
But there's still a community, and I bet especially these days with social media and everything, they're connecting in with that community, right? Like they're like, in groups online or whatever it is, and allowing, whether they know it or not, or whether they call it bonding or not, like that's sometimes a very touchy-feely language that some people don't love. But there's something that's like there's a connection happening for them, and we're sort of, there's a common, like it's for like it's I think I was reading it's mirror neurons are believed to be there as a way of learning and learning by experience and adapting, and like that mimicry helps us to learn and expand. But I wonder if there's a function, just based on this little conversation we had, like I wonder if there's a function in that allows us to actually do more when we do get to lean into that, rather than just sort of staying at a certain place, which may or may not be good, bad, or whatever, but allows us to sort of go, like remove the glass ceiling on the quality of life.
Yeah, for sure. I think like definitely for increasing athletic ability and stuff, if
well,
you get caught up in
the 4-minute mile was a thing, right? Like that was believed to, if no one can run a 4-minute mile because their heart will explode, and then someone did it. I don't remember the name of the guy, but like someone did it, and then and then all of a sudden many people were doing it in quick succession. So it's like,
when somebody proves it's possible,
yeah.
But even just little things like for going into Muay Thai, for example, if you see somebody that's doing certain things in fighting and you're like, oh, they're so good, I'll never be as good as them. Instead of seeing them as some sort of god, if you actually copy some of their stuff and do some of their stuff, you'll find that you improve as well.
Yeah.
Instead of seeing somebody as better than you because they're different, maybe try and
Yeah.
incorporate some of what they do into your routine.
And I think that's a good lesson too. Like, I've had conversations with some clients this week about how they're in a lot of comparison, and instead of going, oh, that could be like, if it's possible for them, that could be possible for me too, they're going, oh, they have
I think we have
this.
this big, like, don't want to copy
Mm,
sort of mentality. Like, if you see someone doing something, even in the gym, if somebody's doing something, a really cool exercise for your hip flexor or whatever, you're like, oh, look at them doing that cool exercise. I wish I had some cool hip flexor exercises.
yeah.
There's one. Do
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Like, well, you get it in yoga as well. Like, the amount of people who tell me, they're like, I can't do yoga. And I'm like, okay, why? And they're like, oh, I'm not flexible enough. I'm like, do you think that that's why you do yoga? Like, maybe that's your motivation. It's a lot of people's motivation to start doing yoga is to get more. Like, it's, I wonder if, yeah, there's too much comparison that can get in the way of how we actually let ourselves have the things that could be useful for us or could make us feel good or feel better. Like in your case, like exercise physiology is no joke. Like, it's so useful and it's so powerful in what it can do, because it's not just like, our physical health is connected to our mental health in a lot of ways as well. And there's a lot of research in that. And I mean, I'm sure you've experienced a lot of shifts in people who, when they're allowing themselves to focus on that physical health aspect, it can sometimes, at the very least, serve as support structures for their mental health in a way, right?
Oh, 100%. It definitely does. Some of the stuff I talk about with in that regard is that it becomes too helpful and people, it becomes a bit of a crux for people.
Yeah.
The exercise becomes you realize how much it changes your life and increases your mental health and sort of alleviates a lot of your depressive symptoms, or but then that you forgo everything else. You stop seeing your psyche, you stop taking medication.
They forget to do the other things that are important too, and it's like, okay, but
all the other wheels fall off, and,
yeah.
And then if something happens, you get a shoulder injury or some sort of injury that sort of debilitates you from doing what you normally do to support your mental health.
Yeah.
Then it's gonna go down a landslide real quick. So yes, exercise definitely helps, and we just need to make sure that it's an adjunct. Adjunct being a complementary treatment.
Yeah.
But you're also looking after your mental welfare as well.
Yeah, that's how I approach it a lot too. Like, I kind of, and I'm happy to, but I overstress the emphasis on, like, this is not saying this is going, like with my work, it's especially with soldiers, it's more the yoga and meditation and stress response and emotional awareness education pieces. But it's the emphasis on going, like, this is not going to, like, quote unquote, like, fix everything, but this is a really useful tool or a really useful support structure that you use in conjunction with a lot of other things, but it's one really powerful thing with other powerful things that you're learning as well. And this is great. Like, use it all, but don't rely on just one, because, like, in any scenario, if we rely on just one thing, and if, like you said, if that gets taken away, we're almost like, we could almost feel like we're in a worse position.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I do preach, obviously, to the ends of everything, the benefits of exercise, because I'm very biased in that regard. But I think being cognizant, especially working with the soldiers at the recovery center, and seeing how much like soldiers are quite elite
Mm.
to a degree in their fitness and training, and then that being their sort of a lot of their identity. Um, but just seeing once that's taken away from them, how much it affects their mental health.
Yeah.
Um, it's made me realize that, yeah, although exercise is a huge thing, it can't be the only thing.
Yeah. Well, I think even if I think about, like, I'm in no way elite in the sense of exercise, but when COVID hit and that first lockdown happened, the thing I struggled with the most was not having gym, like not having weights, like in the resistance training. Because I'm like, oh no, that was literally my stability. And what if I don't have that? What does that mean? And
Yeah,
yeah,
so you
so it
notice
was,
it pretty quick if
mm,
it's taken away for sure.
yeah. So
Yeah, everything, the feeling, like the physical sort of feelings, but all the hormones and you know
mhm.
chemicals that are released when you do an exercise, when you do a workout, rather,
Yeah,
are once all that's taken away from you, especially if it's a daily thing, like anything, I guess.
it's
If it
like,
becomes
yeah.
something that's routine, like if you drink coffee every day and stop drinking coffee, you're gonna notice. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and there's an adjustment, I imagine too. Like, yeah, it's like, all right, here are the headaches. I know where they're like. If you remember where they're from, and go, okay, this is the reason. Makes it
yeah,
a bit easier to handle, but sometimes the remembering the reason is the challenge because we're like, why am I feeling this way? And it's like, no, no, remember you haven't
yeah,
had
yeah,
caffeine.
yeah. Yeah, and it's like that when you exercise. People go on holidays and stuff and wonder why they end up fighting with their partners and things like when you're taken out of your
Mm,
general your normal routine. If you run every day and all of a sudden you stop running and you sit on the couch for a week because you're you know um, whatever, you go on a holiday or a work trip or something and you're sort of confined to a hotel room, and then you wonder
yeah.
why you're snappy and unhappy, and you just need to sort of, yeah, find other ways, I guess, to
Well, it's
remedy.
also why I pack resistance bands in my suitcase. So I'm like, all right, I can work something and get it
Yeah, yeah.
out.
Bands are a godsend.
Oh yeah, because they're light and travelable as well.
Yeah.
Um, what would be an example, like a highlight example, whether it's your own personal one or one you've witnessed in someone you've been working with, that's really felt important or inspirational for you or just potent in the realization? What would be something?
In the realization, in what way?
Just anything, like what would be an example of a time that you've had a profound kind of moment in going, oh, this is like a learning moment?
For a client,
Yeah,
for
for a
myself.
client or for yourself in the process of, like in the process of, I guess, exercise physiology or exercise and physical well-being.
Um, oh, they happen all the time, I guess.
That's nice.
Um, um, I think working with the populations that I work with, um, obviously I work with veterans and soldiers daily, but I also have other clients with my Healthy Fox business um, that could be cancer patients and um, or from any sort of chronic disease or illness. Um, so working with these sort of populations, it's pretty common to have just people that have just coming from a really bad place physically and mentally, and just having massive breakthroughs to just see the benefits of exercise and how much it just changes their life from
Hmm.
um, from a mental health perspective. There's been some pretty huge ones where, especially people that might have been told that they're never going to do this again, they're never going to do that again. You're never going to be able to run again, for example, because you've had double hip replacement, or you're never going to be able
Hmm.
to do boxing again because of whatever injuries you've sustained, and then just working with them to achieve those goals because those things were so important to them,
Hmm.
um, and and yeah, just to see their reaction when it happens, and just how much it changes their life is it's massive for me. It's kind of unexpected. Like, I knew that exercise phys would be big in the fact that it would change lives, but actually seeing it change lives is very fulfilling. I guess you would say it's massive.
Yeah, of course it is.
But then, yeah, on the mental health side of things, especially with soldiers, ones that are very broken, and their mental health is spiraling, and then you bring them back up, and just honestly, it's probably the feedback that I get once they've had breakthroughs that are the most profound thing, and it's me in the feels.
Yeah, no, like, of course it does though. It's just like, oh, this is so nice. Like, wow, this makes a difference. And it's usually like a longevity difference too. Especially, and I've had a couple of these moments recently, is like when you see them like a year later, right? And they're like, oh, hey, like this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, wow, this is actually not just in the moment. And especially with exercise phys, right? Like, it's not just in the moment, it's things that can shift the trajectory of someone's life over like a longer period of time than the program that they're in.
Yeah, for sure. And just being able to, like, do things, like they'll come back and say, oh, you won't believe it, I went and did this on the weekend, I never thought I'd be able to do that again. Stuff like that. Even my dad, 3 years ago, we went we went to Canada. I went up the gondola in Banff, and we wanted to hike from where the gondola stops to the top of the mountain, which was, I don't know, maybe just 2 or 3 k's, but it was a lot of stairs and climbing. And my dad couldn't do it. It was just he was in a lot of pain. He couldn't even do sort of the first sort of part because his knees. He's getting old. He's early 70s, and his knees are cooked. So I wrote him an exercise program for his knees, and then in December just gone, so 3 years after the first time we went back to the same gondola in Banff.
Oh, wow.
Took my daughter this time, and he did the whole thing. And without any pain, we got to the top, and I was like, how are your knees feeling? He's like, I don't feel anything. So.
Amazing. Like, well, for starters, good on your dad for actually following through, because sometimes you can't be a prophet to your own people, right? So, so good on him for actually receiving that information.
Yeah, I think mum and dad are at a really good age where they've got a lot of friends that are sort of dealing with chronic disease and becoming immobile and stuff now.
So it's kind of a motivator.
Yeah. So I'm like, it's not about living to be 100. It's about actually living those years.
It's quality of life. It's how do you want to spend your time? Like, regardless
you might
of
live
age.
from 80 to 100, but do you want to be living in a home with somebody looking after you, or do you want to be actually golfing and hiking and doing
amazing,
and sort of seeing friends that are going into homes and wanting to be able to golf and hike? They were like, yeah, we'll do it.
That's awesome.
Those internal drivers, or whatever the external drivers are, maybe.
Yeah. What's something that you feel like you have room for improvement in the area? Like, it could be a goal that you're working on, or something that you want to sort of improve on in the area of maybe how you like communicate with yourself around physical health and well-being, or how you, like, you were showing me your goal, like your sort of training plan for something. Like, what's something that you want to sort of focus on as a room for improvement with how you lead yourself there?
I guess the thing that is me about myself is I need a goal. I need to have something. I need to have something to work towards. And if I don't, then I'm like,
Same.
And I think one of my downfalls is I'm pretty athletic because of all the years of stuff that I've done. So I find that I will compare myself to my
There it
clients.
is. Yeah. Okay.
I'll go, I don't like, this person can't even do 10 push-ups. I could easily do 10 push-ups, so I'm not that bad. Or, I could easily go for a jog for a couple of k's. Like I'm not that bad. So I'll justify my inactivity by comparing
Ah,
myself to
yeah.
people that aren't as fit or active as me.
Uh-huh.
Um, well, I'm not that bad. I'm still quite capable, and I could do it if I wanted to. But yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm sort of in two minds about it. Like I tell everybody, like you need to find something. You need a motivator. You need a driver. Find a goal if you need a goal. Find that community if you need a community. Um, but then I get upset at myself um, if I don't have that community because I get busy. I work 3 jobs.
Yeah.
I'm a single dad, and my jobs don't always allow for me to get to classes and stuff. But then I'm like, well, I do jiu-jitsu, so if I can't make the jiu-jitsu times, then I guess I don't train. And so I guess um, it annoys me that I I think like that rather than thinking I can't go to jiu-jitsu, so I'll just put some shoes on and go for a run, which is what I should do.
Yeah. It's like the all or nothing.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's like whatever my goal is at the time. Like my goal last year was to be a black belt in jiu-jitsu, not in a year, but over time. And there was a period of almost 6 months where I didn't train at all because
Mm.
I couldn't get to class times anymore. I would only train once a week or so with a friend at the SRC or in the park or whatever. My jiu-jitsu wasn't progressing, and I'm like, sort of threw my hands in the air, going, "Well, if I can't do jiu-jitsu, then that's it. That's it for me." But so then I had to, you know, find another goal and make it more sort of body weight and running based, so that I could just do
Mm.
it anytime, any day, anywhere. Um, so the fact that I still, after all the athletic achievements that I've had, I still feel like that annoys me a lot. Um, and I'm not sure that I'll ever fix it. I'm 41 now,
Mm.
so.
Well, you never know, but I think like thank you for sharing that too, because it's a good reminder for all of us that we get to change our goal, and it doesn't mean that the original goal isn't still there, but it does mean that we are empowered to sort of adjust things to make it work for us, so we're still enjoying the process as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, for sure.
And I
I go
really
through a lot of
love
that
that
with,
reminder.
yeah, that's something that I actually talk about a lot with my pain clients.
Mm.
That just because, yeah, actually, I never even thought about it for myself, but just because you can't do
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
but more on the pain base, like just because, like, I used skiing for one of my examples, just because you can't be a downhill skier anymore because your knees don't allow it,
Mm.
doesn't mean that you can't still live towards those values of being in the outdoors and being in the mountains.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't ski though. Maybe you hike or you cross country
Mhm.
ski or something that's not so full of
Intense.
impact. And
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, still living towards your values, but just changing your goals slightly to accommodate what you
Mm.
can do now. But yeah, so that sort of fits with what I do for myself and what I've had to do, which is okay, I can't do jiu-jitsu because I can't do classes and it's a class-based sport,
Mm.
but I can run and there's lots of running goals that I can do. So
Yeah, and if we speak about like learning by imitation or learning by modeling, imagine how powerful that would be for your clients when you talk about those things on purpose and go, yeah, like I changed this because this, and they're like, oh, suddenly it's a possible thing, and it's like, oh, Harley's doing okay. I guess I might do okay if I change something based on where I'm at too, right? So like that's a gift that you get to then give to your people as a way of just modeling because you're already doing it. So
nice.
that's awesome. Yeah. And what's something you feel like you do pretty well and now you're just intentional about doing because like it doesn't have to be perfect, but just something that you're like, yeah, I do that pretty well. I'm just going to keep doing that on purpose.
um, as far as my health and well-being,
Yeah.
what do I do pretty well?
Or how you talk to yourself about it. Sometimes it's like the inner dialogue?
Not too sure. I feel like in general, like I never let myself get too, like I say these things, I come down on myself, but I'm not. I never let myself get too far off track.
Mm,
I guess I'm pretty quick to realize if something's sort of going off the rails or falling apart, and I'll redirect myself.
that's a good
Um,
skill. Like, and it is a skill. You build up that ability to
yeah,
check in. Yeah.
yeah. So I think what I do well is adapt. What I have done my whole life is um, adapt to the situation and the circumstances,
Mm,
and I'm quite good at having the resilience to let that thing go and move on to the next thing.
yeah.
And if it's something that I really care about, like jiu-jitsu, coming back, um, that black belt um, is not something I've forgotten about. It's just something I've gone, that's not achievable right now. But when my daughter's a
Yeah.
bit older and I don't have to look after her and watch her, I can leave her at home and go to the gym. Then that becomes a real possibility
Mm,
again.
yeah.
I'll redirect.
It's
So I
just
guess, yeah, my adaptability, and I'm never too hard on myself. Like obviously I'm human. A lot of things are a tough pill to swallow. Um,
mm,
but I think once I do swallow it, then I'm pretty good at going, all right, let's get this thing going.
yeah. That's awesome. I like having that little, that's why I followed that one up from like from the room for improvement to that one. I'm like, yeah, no, because we get to self-acknowledge things. It's important.
Yeah.
Cool. So last things, I am aware of time also, but where can people follow you or your work? Website, anywhere socially?
Yeah. I I work for the Soldier Recovery Centre at Gallipoli Barracks. Also work at Mates for Mates as an exercise physiologist, and I work for my own business called Healthy Fox Exercise Physiology. So if you wanted to contact me, Healthy Fox would be the one to do it at.
Yep.
And that's just healthyfox.com.au or healthyfoxexercisephysiology.com or healthyfox.au.
Any of those, yeah,
Just basically
I'll include them in
look
the
up
caption.
look up Healthy Fox Exercise Physiology and you'll find me.
Yeah,
And yeah, you can send me a message on the website. I kind of don't do social media anymore. It's uh, not really my jam.
that's
Um,
fair.
so I think if you look for a page, you'll find one, but
But you're not
I
really
don't
on
check.
it.
I don't
Yeah,
check.
fair
I don't
enough.
check it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and for having this conversation. I think it was, I don't know, there's always nuggets. So I don't know, I enjoyed it. And I think there was a lot of useful things in that. So I really appreciate you coming on and just sharing your experience and sharing a bit of your journey and what you've learned and how you see things, because that's how we learn anyway. So thank you.
Yeah, cool. No worries. Thanks for having me. Hope anyone that listened might have, yeah, like you said, done some useful nuggets in there.
Yeah.